Hello people, and welcome to Crypto Exposed. Solana confirms officially XRP is coming to Solana. Okay guys, let's get into it. Okay, so this is really great to see, and there's been so much going on at the moment with Ripple and XRP. Obviously, you know, Ripple have just got their banking license as well, and I've just, like I said, I've been wanting to like cover these things in real time, but unfortunately I just can't get around to it like that. So here we are. But yeah, I want to go into this and just give you my thoughts. Once again, I think this is really great. I think this is going to be, you know, one of those things where the maxes are probably not going to be so happy about this and not as bothered, but I want to explain why really that shouldn't be your thought process and why this is actually a positive thing for XRP overall. Okay, so let's get into it then. So recently there was this whole thing where there was some talk, and I can't remember what triggered it, so apologies about that. It's really, you know, just lost my memory right now, but there was a reason as to why basically Solana started putting up XRP posts, and some of it did look like they were trying to like mock the community, because like, for example, they put 589, which 589 is basically a number that people have believed in the XRP community that XRP is going to get to, and this was meant to have happened like years ago. So this is one of those things where, you know, it's a big thing where people are aware of it and people still believe it's going to happen. You know, it's not, it's silly, it's absolute nonsense the way it's come about. It was from an influencer under the persona of bearable guy, putting out these crazy pictures indicating that he had some kind of inside information about XRP and Ripple, which it was just completely false, to be honest with you. But anyway, moving that aside, and then also Solana was putting things like time to flip the switch, which again, these are all like buzzwords in the XRP community, right? Flip the switch, all the banks are using XRP, 589, the kind of price at a level that it's going to get to, etc. And so there were some who thought that this was Solana mocking XRP, but no, it actually turned out that they were actually trying to kind of stand with the community and get some engagement with them, because they wanted to make this announcement that XRP is actually coming to Solana. They're going to be on the chain of Solana being wrapped. So let's get into, you know, the pros and cons of this. The cons is obviously it's not volume on the actual XRP ledger. So that's just one thing that I will say. You know, it's not going to be activity that happens on the actual XRP ledger. But to me, that's the only real con I can think of, to be honest with you. And the reason why I'll say that's not a con at all is because if there's people who are on a different network, so let's just go with Solana in this instance. If there's people who are on Solana, they just might not want to leave that network, right? Like, there are people who are very tribal about the cryptos that they are in. So some people may be like, XRP is cool, but, you know, I'm a Solana holder, I believe in Solana, so Solana is the network that I'm going to continue to push, and it's the only network that I will use because it's the one I've got my most money in, it's the one I really believe in. And so those people were not going to use the XRP ledger anyway, right? So what this is doing is it's allowing people who might have some kind of intrigue about XRP to be able to utilize XRP without actually, you know, having to go over to the XRP ledger, right? And so this, what it basically does is expands XRP's reach, yeah, because it's now going cross-chain. The other thing I'll say about this is, and we're getting into the pros now of this, and these are really more pros than cons, clearly. What you've got to understand is, like, with every XRP that's wrapped, it actually has to be backed. So, for example, if they make, let's just say, 10,000 wrapped XRP, just as an example, they have to actually have 10,000 XRP to back it up. So this isn't a thing where they just create these tokens of wrapped XRP and it doesn't get affected on the network at all. That 10,000 XRP that has been wrapped, they have to buy that 10,000 XRP. They have to own that 10,000 XRP. So that is actually going to be locked up, right? So when we're talking about supply and demand, that is, you know, XRP on the actual XRP ledger that is now being taken away because it's being held to use the wrapped XRP. So it does actually have an impact on XRP as well. So to me, the other thing I'll say is, you know, Solana has a really big DeFi platform. And so what it's actually also doing is helping XRP to expand over into like more DeFi services, more DeFi field. And so to me, that's huge because, look, I stand on what I've said about Solana. So I'm not about to like switch up now. I'm keeping the same energy. I've definitely heard about outages and things like that. But this is the thing that I'll say to you guys. It's like the same thing I've said about Ethereum. Regardless of whatever I think about the network, it's doing well. Like I said this before, like with Solana, like I've heard it's had a lot of outages, which is why I had concerns about it in terms of investing. But the price can't be denied. It's had a huge price run, right? Same as Ethereum. I may not like some of the tactics that happened in the ETHgate, the lawsuit, what we found out through the SEC lawsuit. There was definitely dirty tactics played by Ethereum, but Ethereum is just doing well. Like I have to acknowledge that now. I do think that they played dirty to get where they are. I'm not going to ignore that. But it is what it is. Like we can't change what is reality, right? And so, Ethereum is the number 2 crypto out there. That's just where it is. Now, would it have been different had the SEC not have, sued Ripple? I think that's a very real possibility. I think things could possibly have been very different. So, this is like going to be, actual adoption of XRP, and it's just being expanded. And, like I said before, with the maxis, even on the XRP side saying, hey, we don't really want this and, we don't care about Solana. Guys, as I've said, it's not going to be one chain. It's just not going to be one chain at the end of the day. Like, there's going to be multiple chains that are successful. So, at the end of the day, these cryptos being able to expand cross-chain is a huge positive. It is. It's going to be a benefit at the end of the day because it's actually helping these cryptos being able to use on other platforms where other people can use them who may not have otherwise have used them. It's more access. So it's just a positive at the end of the day. I think you've got to just look past the whole, tribalism aspect of it. I think you've just got to look at it as, hey, this is just another platform XRP is now available on. And again, if you want the pro of that, the XRP is being locked up. So it's not like it doesn't impact the XRP ledger as well. It does. It does because that XRP is now having to be stored away. So to me overall, I think this is huge, to be honest with you. Like, this is really great to see. I actually imagine that we're going to see more of this as we start to, go further into the crypto adoption scale. I think, there'll be numerous tokens that'll be wrapped on each other's chains and stuff like that. So, the access will be there for all these cryptos. And as I say, like, this is where, for me, expanding, over to different ecosystems, it can only help with the reach and the longevity of the, of the networks, to be honest with you. And as I say, like, when it's all said and done, the people who are only going to use Rector XRP on Solana is because they was on Solana anyway, right? So this is a thing where, like, had these people have not had the option to use Rector XRP, then they probably wouldn't be using XRP at all. So that's where I say, like, you got to take the positive out of this of, well, it's either the XRP is not used at all, right? Or we take, okay, it's not on the ledger, so it's not volume on the ledger, but it is going to be, this XRP is locked away because it's being used as collateral for the Rector XRP that's going to be utilized on Solana, right? And then again, it's going to help across DeFi because Solana is a big DeFi platform. So it's a huge positive. And so just to go onto this, we've got here the Ripple CTO endorses new XRP DeFi opportunity, and he calls it a good thing, which is David Schwartz we're talking about here. So just get into what we're talking in regards to this specifically. With Rector XRP, users can trade XRP against RLUSD on Ethereum and other supported chains. Moreover, it opens access to DeFi opportunities across multiple networks, including Solana, Optimism, and Hyper EVM. Accordingly, retail users will get simple access to swaps, lending, and other DeFi opportunities on supported chains. So, as I say, there you go. It is a good thing. I agree with David here. This can only be a net positive in the end when it's all said and done. There's really not cons to this overall. As I said, like the main thing of this is that it's positive, to be honest with you, overwhelmingly positive. And as I say, like I've said it numerous times, like interoperability and unity, it's the way forward for the crypto space. You got to understand that, like, we've seen it with the whole thing with Ripple getting the banking license. The banks didn't want all this to happen. The banks didn't want all this competition. They didn't want crypto here. So crypto needs to come in, like these companies in the industry, it needs to come in as a united front. It doesn't help when you've got the actual crypto companies and representatives of the tokens fighting against each other. Do you know what I mean? Like that doesn't help, because it's bad enough that we've got to fight against the, you know, the older generation, traditional finance sectors and, you know, the banks and stuff like that who are so against crypto. We've had to fight against all that. And now we're getting to that point where we've got the adoption. We need to be here on a united front. We need to be here together, standing tall, saying we want crypto to succeed. And here we are fighting against all this united, you know. So I'm really happy to see this, to be honest with you. And as I said, it's going to, you know, put XRP on a huge DeFi platform, you know, more access, you know, more opportunities. So yeah, to me, I'm not going to argue with this at all. I think this is big at the end of the day. I think this is another positive. So I look forward to seeing more about this and how it goes. But yeah, this is, you know, one of these step forwards that I think we're going to in terms of an interoperable future, you know, multiple cross-chain cryptos, that kind of thing. I think that's just going to be where it is when we go forward, because again, there's going to be different companies that use different networks for different things. And there might be times where they want to use, you know, one crypto, but they're not going to want to have to understand that, like, oh, to use the XRP, I can only use the XRP ledger, or to do this, I can only do this through the XRP ledger. They're going to want to be able to just do it and it gets done. So this is where the interoperability will be key, because that's where they can use, you know, different tokens that are wrapped, etc., and that kind of thing, or interoperate with other networks, etc., to do, you know, whatever it is that needs to be done. So this is where we're talking mass adoption wise, you know. So yeah, huge positive in my opinion, and I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on anything that comes further from this. Thank you very much for watching this. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell. Take care.